My name is Anton Noble. I'm a mentor at Guiding Young Minds,
My name's Callum Lucas. I'm a mentor at Guiding Young Minds.
and I'm here to share what we do, what we have done, and what we're going through in the pandemic. And at this moment of time in this pandemic, it's got very stressful. Stressful in because I think COVID has enhanced what's going on in people's homes and people's life, and it's feeding the negativity at the minute. And if you've got a child that is can't be around their parents as much because you ain't got a relationship, they're now being forced to stay in the home, which then the parents are kicking them outside the house, which is when they get sent to obviously the bad people that are on the streets. And this is why they do a lot of violence and criminal behavior, because they're around people that live that life. And then you get the kids that can't be in the house because there's domestic violence from their parents and stuff. And yeah, there's a lot of stress has been happening with us also due to the amount of calls we get, the amount of messages that we get, the amount of social media that kids come to us. And it's to keep on top of it is very stressful, but we're getting through it. And we have to get through it together. And even there's times where I'm very honest to the kids. Sometimes I feel very depressed and very down that day, and the kids' emotions and their happiness fills me back up. And so that's when we need each other. Because even though I'm a mentor, I've also go through stuff in my own life, and as I said in the previous video, I see everyone that I work with as family. So that means I see the mother as my mother, and I see the father as my father. I see this as the child that I work with as my little brother. And I see them that way because that's the way how I can nurture them and I can give them the best advice, because I grew up in a family where you can't really lie to your family. My mother knows when I was lying. My dad knew when I was lying. My brother knew when I took his stuff, or if I tried to look a kind of way that he presents himself. So I see that in other families. So I tailor myself to be the best person I can for that family. And sometimes in this pandemic, all people want you to do is listen. They don't want you to say anything. They just want someone to listen to them, soak it in, and take it away, and then come back with something that is productive and that can help them along the way. But I do with the financial kind of thing with the service. God bless him, we ain't been affected. It's actually really helped us in a way, because not because people are getting more worse, and due to the people that are funding us, which is the YEF, they've really said that because we have adapted to the situation. So now we do a lot of online stuff, virtual stuff, and we do a lot of outreach, and we still go into schools, but there's only 2 of us that go into schools, and we work with the kids that are really affected. But so we've been working all the way through since March all the way to now. So we ain't really had a break. So, but yeah, our funding and our expenses and stuff have really been settled and stable. I can't say that with other services, because there's many other services that we were linked with have fallen and very struggling and needed help. So even with that, we have to help other services that are going through stuff. So it's not just we're here to look after ourselves. It's like everyone's trying to look after each other, and that's what needs to happen. And as COVID as a metaphor, COVID could be a thing what breaks you, or it could be something that makes you. And so with me personally, it's given me a lot of vision and a lot of growth to go into other things that I didn't want to try, but I can try it now. And a lot of the things we do virtual, we've actually put together a short film, which is really, I don't think it's never been done by intervention. And it's gonna be like a series like Netflix, but it's gonna be on Instaflix, so Instagram, and it's gonna be something that's really not been done, because I'm a person that tries to try stuff, even if it don't work. I've tried it. So yeah, that's what we're getting into, and we're getting into a lot of motivational speaking and encouraging and exercising, because my background is from the gym. So a lot of things that we're going to do, and fashion as well, a lot of things we're going to do, we're going to get young people to get involved with and promote, really. And I'll let Callum have them.
Yeah, I think it's good. We've just been like trying to do everything we can. I think obviously the dynamics changed as far as like not being able to go into people's homes. which is very difficult for us because obviously, like, we try to see our clients in whichever place they feel most comfortable and what works for them. And obviously, it's not always the client themselves that we're supporting wholly. Obviously, we do have the family aspect of, we do try and go the extra mile with everything and try and support the parents, siblings, whoever it might need to be. And it's obviously finding how best to do so. So obviously, like Anton said, we've still been doing a lot of outreach work. Schools have been very cooperative and obviously letting us in to have spaces in schools where we can still meet our clients and things like that, which has been massively helpful. So I think it's just one of them things where all the outside services are all having to kind of pull together, and it's shown to schools, especially, I think it's highlighted the importance of what we do and how much of an impact we can make. And that the bigger picture is, it's just as hard for us as it is for everyone. We're all human and we're all going through this like terrible time. But the more we pull together and the more we can get out there, people who have had the experiences that the young people have been having, that we can pull together and turn a negative into a positive. So, yeah.
And there's some kids that we all work with that were on a good path. Because of this pandemic, it's set them back a bit. Because sometimes when we go to see them weekly, they have to isolate because the school has said someone in their classrooms have COVID. So we can't see them for 2 weeks. And that puts it back. We can speak to them over the phone, but that's not the same, because these kids thrive off connection and they thrive off emotions, and they like to see your emotion. Like, I've got one kid, if I looked at the clock before it's time for us to finish, he'll say, "Are you bored of me?" And that kind of stuff. That's how much they're connected. So being there physically is more greatly. To be honest, I don't really like virtual. I'm more of a person, man. But for us to get things and to adapt with what's going on now, we have to do a lot of virtual. But I still try and be real. So even when I'm not feeling good or feeling down, I still say it and express it, because I want people to know that mentally, emotionally, and on your own life, it does affect you. But that don't mean you can't keep stepping, because sometimes you feel down, and that day there's a blessing coming for you, if you understand. Because there's a lot of kids that I work with that are highly, highly stressful and very violent. But when I get to them, they like encourage me. And it's, even though I'm called a mentor, sometimes a kid becomes a mentor to me that day, because I'm learning. And that's how I keep myself. I'm very humble. So I really learn off people. And a kid loves to be listened and to even hear, "Yo, you taught me something new today, bro. I didn't even know," that kind of thing. And it inspires you, and it inspires them to think, "Oh, I could be like you then, can't I?" You could be anything. Yeah. Anything you want to be, you could be. And it just shows you us to turn our life around. It has not been easy.
I was just about to say, I think that is the bigger impact on it, is when you sit and, like Claire was saying in her previous video, it's one of them things where when you've got somebody in front of you who you can't relate to, it is very, very difficult to want to open up and build a trust with that individual. It's like, but for me personally, I find a lot of the time, some people will have a certain perception of me and will have a different perception of Anton. And certain clients I would sit and work better with than Anton would, and Anton vice versa. But it's one of them things when they sit and actually, because we are so honest and we are so open, and I think Anton's very much the same as me. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I've done a lot of bad things and had a lot of bad experiences, but they've all led me to become the person that I am. So it's nothing that I'm particularly ashamed of. And it's all things that I see, all the mistakes I've made, I can now relay that information to these clients and these young kids, and they can learn from my mistakes. They might not have people in their lives that they can look up to, and we can be positive role models for them to say, we don't need to go as far into it as you guys did. Because I'll just stress the importance, like Anton said, we have turned our lives around, and we are in a very fortunate position now where we can go back and help people who are in the same predicament that we were. But it's one of them things where it's a lot easier for them to be able to look at me and speak to me and think, "Oh, okay, what, you actually understand?" And when I say certain things that they're doing at the minute, and I'm like, yeah, when I did that, and they're like, "Whoa, what, you've done that as well? You know what, I'm stressed." And then they'll open up, and it's like, I can relate back to how I felt. I look at myself with some of my clients and I sit there and think, wow, I feel like I'm talking to myself 10 years ago. And it's like a crazy thing, but it's like an amazing experience for me and very humbling as well, because it does put into perspective how much of a big thing this is and how much it needs to be taken seriously. Because when I was younger, it was like you always had the bad kid in class or the naughty group in your year group. Back then, we were the minority, and we were kind of, like Claire was saying, you're thrown out of school or you're gotten rid of, you're swept under the carpet. But now, the problem is it's becoming a majority. It's more of a trend. Being bad and the gang lifestyle, the culture, all that is becoming the most popular thing to do. So now they're the majority rather than the minority.
As a background voice, I'm going to say it's almost like it's a fashion.
Yeah,
it is. It's easier for my son to be the clown and the bad one and the fighter than it was for him to sit down and read a book.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it is a lot easier now because, like, when we were kids, we were very aware, even from a police presence point of view. I didn't particularly fear the police myself, I'll be honest, but I'm from a very different background. Like, I grew up with a single mum, but my mum was a policeman's daughter. My granddad was a police officer for 32 years. So I then went down the route of, I ended up in prison. So from a family perspective, I brought the ultimate shame on my family. You see what I'm saying? So, but for me, the police presence was different then. We were very aware of the police and very aware of what our consequence was. Now, the consequences aren't taken seriously. And I think a lot of these kids aren't actually educated on what the consequences of what their actions are.
The respect isn't
the respect is gone.
Yeah.
So
I've had CID in here before, and my son has got up, and excuse my French, told the copper to go F himself and walked out while CID are interviewing him.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's the level of respect is gone. But I think that's why what we do is so important, because it's, if the police aren't respected and they're not respecting their environment, their teachers, who might be their parents, whoever it is, if there is young males and females within the community that can be a role model and can be a voice for these young kids and can understand them and relate to them and help them manage their needs and educate them on what the consequences are, what their goals could be, what they can achieve in life. Because I think a lot of them have lost hope. They think there is nothing for them to do. Oh, what is COVID? There's no jobs now. Oh, how am I going to do this? Do you know what I mean? And they look at them things, and everyone wants quick money, fast money all the time. It's the law of that Instagram lifestyle. Do you know what I mean? And the reality of it is that is not real life. And I think it'd be better spent educating them. I'll sit and tell my kids, you should be looking at mortgages, banks, saving your money, put your money in a savings account. Do you know what I mean? When you've got that money, don't be going out and buying nice things. You know your mum that's looked after you for 15 years. Go buy your mum a bunch of flowers. You know what I'm saying? It's little things like that. Whereas old school is being humble. It's knowing your roots, knowing where you come from. And I think it's the same from a cultural perspective. You know what I mean? My upbringing might have been very different to Anton's, or like I've got 3 stepbrothers. They're Jamaicans. You know what I'm saying? I've grown up with them from 5 years old. So I got brought into their culture. So that's how I grew up. So it's taking the time to understand as well. I think that's where a lot of people are at fault now, is people get put into groups and boxes and labelled, where actually, no, kids are kids. They are young children. And it doesn't matter what creed or colour or what culture you're from, you all have the same emotional, physical, mental needs. And it's important no matter who you are or where you're from. So, and like Claire was saying, it doesn't matter whether you live on the house on the hill with 10 bedrooms and 10 bathrooms, or whether you're in the council house down the road. Do you know what I mean? You're still human. And we are all on a level playing field at the minute. This pandemic has shown that, because nobody's safe from it. Do you know what I'm saying? It shows we are human. And yeah, I can't stress the importance of what we do enough, for the fact of just being the ear, or the ear to listen or the shoulder to cry on most of the time. Do you know what I mean? So, and then when we can, give them the right advice and obviously point them in right directions and educating them as best we can.
And the last thing I want to say, it's hard when you got the teachers, social workers, police, and many other professionals that quite very high status. They come to you and they ask for answers, and some of these answers that they want, therefore they already go through in their own life. And I do express this and say this quite a lot to teachers and stuff, because I always hear teachers saying, I can't relate to what these are going through. You can't relate to the situation, but you can relate to it emotionally. If a child's saying that he's depressed, a teacher has been depressed before. If a child's saying that he's been suicidal, a teacher has been suicidal before. It may have came a different way, but the emotion's still the same. And because when teachers, police and all that and start saying stuff like, I can't relate, he doesn't want to speak to me. He doesn't want to speak to your uniform, no. Yeah. But he wants to speak to the person, yeah. And the person is, sometimes you have to take off the uniform and you have to speak real, really. I don't want to come and do this job like I do. Sometimes I ain't gonna lie to you. Some days I wake up and go, this ain't me. Yeah. I need to go back what I used to do. And then sometimes I wake up thinking, oh my God, I'm thriving. I want to do it. It's real life. It's real. And that's what the kids want, real. Even the kids that do right are struggling. And even kids that do bad are struggling. And there's going to be days I may smile for 5 minutes, and there's going to be days I'm crying for 5 minutes. It's life. But these kids see how I think our generation is very damaged, these young ones. Because why I say that is because I was brought up not to cry. And if you cry, I'll give you something to cry about. Yeah?
Exactly.
So when these kids now, yo, do you cry? No. Why don't you cry? Because why would I cry? That's not for me. And I've learned now to actually say it to them, like, I cry. And if you had a film of me for the last 6 months, you'll think I'm a baby, but I'm not. And I say to them, as you see how I smile and the grace that's in my face, it's because I cry a lot to let it out. So when these kids that hold their tears back, their face is quite hardened. They ain't got no emotion because they're keeping it in. And that's because back in the days, we used to call, from our Caribbean backside, we used to call them hard face. My family are very hard face. We wouldn't show no emotions. But deep down, they're breaking. And that's what these kids are showing. Deep down, the inner man is broken, but the outer man looks fine. I don't care about the outer man. You can look glamorous, whatever. If your inner man's broken, that don't mean nothing. It's like an iPhone, really. An iPhone looks pretty on the outside, but if the software inside is damaged, the phone don't no value to no one. And that's what I express to the kids. It don't matter what you dress up and how you trendy and all this kind of stuff. If your inner man is suffering, that's what you need to concentrate on. So I try to do that kind of way with them now, instead of doing the physical, because the physical don't last. These things don't last. It's all about the inner values.